In 1912, in a quiet town called Munich, a girl was born whose name would one day be tied to one of the darkest figures in history. Eva Anna Paula Braun, the girl who would one day choose death alongside Adolf Hitler in a bunker beneath Berlin. But before reaching that tragic end, her life was full of secrets, love, fear, and choices that led her straight into destruction. Before we begin this unbelievable story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video, because today we're diving into one of the most controversial love stories in history. Eva was born into an ordinary family. Her father was a strict and serious teacher, and her mother was a quiet, religious woman. Their home was filled with order and silence, but deep inside, Eva was full of passion, a restless spirit who loved light, movement, and freedom. At school, she used to say, "I don't want to be an ordinary woman. I want the world to see me." No one knew the world really would see her, but not in the way she dreamed. At 17, Eva began working at the photo studio of Heinrich Hoffmann. Her days were filled with chemicals, film negatives, and the sharp smell of developing fluids, until one day, a man walked in and completely changed the air in the room. He was dressed in a dark suit with a neatly tied tie and tall leather boots. A narrow mustache rested just above his upper lip, the same style the world would one day recognize by his name. Heinrich said, "Eva, this is Mr. Hitler, the man everyone's talking about." The young woman simply replied, "Welcome, sir," but her heart was pounding. Later, she wrote, "That day, his gaze fell over my life like a shadow." A few months later, the studio received another call from Hitler's office, supposedly for new photographs. But behind those calls, something else was quietly growing. Hitler sent her gifts: a watch, books, and sometimes white flowers. But he never allowed anyone around him to know. To him, love was a weakness. To Eva, love was everything. In her diary, she wrote, "He wanted me, but only at night, only when he didn't want to be alone." As time passed, her loneliness deepened. Hitler drowned himself in meetings, speeches, and deadly decisions. Eva would sit behind closed doors, camera in hand, eyes full of waiting. When the crowd outside shouted, "Heil Hitler," she smiled softly and whispered, "None of this is for me." Twice she tried to escape that world, once with her father's gun, once with sleeping pills. Both times she survived. When she woke up, Hitler was standing beside her, cold and serious. He said, "Don't ever do that again. I need you, but no one must know." For Eva, that one sentence was enough to fall right back into the circle of danger. In the years that followed, she spent most of her time at the mountain retreat known as Biography. Hidden among the misty Bavarian Alps, life there existed between two worlds. By day, political guests arrived and left. By night, Eva stayed alone in her room, filming quiet moments. In her 8mm home movies, Hitler can be seen laughing with his dogs, while Eva, wearing a summer dress, watches him from a distance. In her diary, she wrote, "No one will ever understand how lonely I was beside the man everyone feared." Sometimes she asked her maid, Lenny, if you were me, would you leave? Lenny would answer, no, miss. Love blinds everyone. And Eva, with a sad smile, would reply, I've been blind since the day I saw him. Meanwhile, the world outside was changing. War had begun, and the true face of the man she loved was revealed. Eva listened to the radio for news from the front. One day, when she heard that thousands had died in Stalingrad, she simply said, I wish he could feel pain like I do. Still, she stayed, not out of fear, but out of a strange and destructive loyalty. She once wrote, I love him not for his power, but for the weakness he hides from the world. Maybe that one sentence explains her entire life. They sometimes stood together on the terrace of Berghof at night. The mountain fog rolled down, and the distant village lights sparkled like fallen stars. Eva softly asked, Adolf, people worship you, but who do you worship? He turned his head and said only one word, the future. A reply with no love in it, only hunger for power. Once, Heinrich Hoffmann brought them a new roll of film. Eva pointed the camera toward the garden and said, Smile. Hitler played with his dog, laughed, and the camera trembled in her hands. Later, she watched the footage alone and whispered, I wish that smile was for me, not for the camera. She used to write letters at night, letters that were never sent. In one of them she wrote, Today I saw a young woman holding her child and waving to you. I thought maybe if I were a mother too, you'd take me more seriously. But we will never be a family. She folded the letter and placed it between the pages of her diary, beside a dried white flower. Sometimes they went down to the nearby town. Guards surrounded them, and crowds waved and shouted. Eva looked out from the car window, watching the faces full of hope and fear. When they returned to the mountain house, Eva said quietly, So many voices, but why do I hear only silence? There was no answer, only the echo of boots fading down the hall. Inside the house, everything followed a schedule. Breakfast time, walk time, meeting time. Between those hours, Eva lived her own small life, practicing piano, letting her hair down, wearing bright summer dresses, and sometimes cycling through narrow forest paths. One day she stopped halfway, took a deep breath, and whispered, I'm here, but it feels like I'm not. A cold breeze from the mountains swept the dry leaves across the path. She found brief friendship with one of the secretaries. The girl once said, Miss Braun, when I look at you, I think of an actress, beautiful, but distant. Eva smiled. An actress in a film no one will ever see the ending of. The secretary replied, Maybe it's too soon for an ending. Eva said softly, Sometimes the ending comes long before the story begins. As the war worsened, the house grew colder. Curtains stayed closed, laughter faded, and the piano fell silent. Eva looked at herself in the mirror and let the silence fill the room. If love can't find its way to light, she whispered, it becomes darkness itself. That night, she took the last reel of her 8mm film, placed it in a box, and wrote on it, For no one. One rainy afternoon, she brought out a basket of old letters and sat by the fire. Some she tore, some she burned, some she read again. In the margin of one, she wrote, "When you smile, the world lights up. When you leave, I go dark." No one ever saw those words, only their ashes twisting in the flame. A friend once told her, "You can still leave. You have a passport, money, a way out." Eva opened a small suitcase, a few dresses, a jewelry box, her diary, and some photographs. She closed it and said, "If he stays, I stay." Her friend whispered, "Sometimes love is just the name of the prison we build for ourselves." In the spring of 1945, as the war neared its end and Berlin was collapsing, Hitler moved into his underground bunker. Eva could have escaped. Her friends told her she still had time, but she packed her small suitcase, took a few photographs, and said, "If he stays, I stay." The air in the bunker was heavy. Bombs thundered above, shaking the walls. One night, servants saw Eva quietly sitting in a corner, turning the pages of her diary. On the last page she had written, "My life is like a film no one will ever see the ending of." On the morning of April 29th, Hitler came out of his room and said, "Eva, it's time." They were married in a small room. No music, just two witnesses. Eva wore a simple blue dress and slipped a thin gold ring onto her finger. The witnesses said she smiled, but her eyes held endless sorrow. The next day, they ate their final meal, held hands, and walked into the room together. A moment of silence, then a single sharp sound, an eternal stillness. Hitler with a bullet, Eva with cyanide. Their loyal guards burned the bodies, leaving behind only ashes. Ashes of love and madness. When Soviet troops entered the bunker, only the smell of smoke and fear remained. Eva Braun was neither a hero nor a villain. She was simply a woman who fell in love with the wrong man at the wrong time. Eva Braun never took part in politics, but her name will forever remain tied to one of the darkest eras in history. Some call her a victim of love, others a silent accomplice. But one thing is certain: until her final breath, she stayed beside the man who destroyed the world. If this haunting story of love and death moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Tales Left Behind, so we can explore more faces that history tried to forget.